Hey everybody, this is Bryan Kramer. I'm live from New York. So excited to be talking to you guys today on our weekly H2H chat. I've got some really awesome guests here today, and I know we're going to have a great conversation. The conversation today is called Market to Consumers, Not Devices. And we've got some really fun things, some fun topics and questions. As you know, and for anybody who is new to the H2H chat this week, I would encourage you to please follow the H2H chat on Twitter, because on Twitter it is going to allow you guys to have a conversation, first of all. Second, we are going to be taking your questions during the first half of this so that I can pose them back to our guests. So please definitely reach out on Twitter, have a great conversation around everything that we're going to be discussing, and that would be awesome. So without further ado, I will introduce our guests and then have them introduce themselves even further. Again, we're talking about consumers, marketing into consumers, not devices. We have some great people here. First and foremost, I have Ingrid Burton, the Chief Marketing Officer from HortonWorks. Ingrid, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hey there, everybody, and thanks for having me, Brian. This is going to be a great event. So I'm Ingrid Burton. Some of you may know me as Ingrid Vandenhogen, a longtime marketeer in Silicon Valley. Just joined HortonWorks a couple of months ago. Thrilled to be part of that team, fast-growing company. I have been a CMO at various companies, including Plantronics, Silver Spring Networks, and head of marketing at Sun Microsystems for about 10 years, I would say. A few years, but also a head of corporate marketing at Sun. Did a lot of things there. And also was at SAP, running HANA marketing, analytics, and some newer technologies that we were bringing to market. So thrilled to be here, and thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Why don't we introduce next Shandar. Shandar, I am not going to try and pronounce your last name. I'm going to let you do that. But I'd like to definitely have you introduce yourself.
Great, Ryan. Great. I'm Chandar. I'm like Bono, just one name, Chandar. Just kidding. I'm Chandar Patabiram, and I'm a Group Vice President responsible for product and corporate marketing here at Marketo. And again, Brian, thanks for hosting us. Very, very excited to be here. And my sphere of responsibility here at Marketo is all the messaging, positioning, go-to-market stuff, and product marketing, as well as all the air cover stuff when it comes to brand marketing and our corporate communications when it comes to corporate marketing. I like to call myself a marketer for life. I've been in marketing for about 17 years, both in small companies as well, in fast-growing companies like Marketo, as well as large of large like IBM, being a marketing executive in these different functions, running marketing at different places. And then before that in management consulting for quite a few years before that. So very excited to be here and look forward to sharing my perspectives with all of you.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to it as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Great.
And then finally we have Wes Nichols. I'm kidding. It's Wes Nichols. He was telling me the right pronunciation, so I'm just delivering that back to him. Wes, it's really nice to see you here today. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
That's great. Hi, I'm Wes Nichols, a co-founder and CEO of MarketShare. If it looks like I'm in a prison back office, I kind of am, but I'm actually in Paris, and the Wi-Fi is so terrible around Paris that the hotel allowed me to come into their office to do this call. So excuse the drabness here. I am also a career marketer. Started off very early back in the day with helping the launch of Capital One. And then launched my own agency, which I grew and sold to Omnicom Group, and then worked at Omnicom, leading digital analytics and one-to-one marketing, trying to bring more humanity to the world of analytics, and launched MarketShare about 10 years ago. And MarketShare has become the largest global analytics company for CMOs and marketers, so specifically focused on planning and attribution. How much should I spend, and then where should I spend it? And those planning tools then connect into execution engines that are all used around the world through marketing clouds and media companies. So we work with predominantly large marketers, mostly multinationals, and all facing the same issues, which is how do I know what I'm doing is working? Where should I spend my next dollar or euro? How do I get beyond kind of simple attribution and simple media mix analytics and actually get to something that's predictive and forward-looking. So that's very much the world that MarketShare is focused on.
Well, that's fantastic. Really appreciate you being here with us today, especially from Paris. Knowing that maybe the Eiffel Tower is just right outside the building, it makes that office you're in that much cooler.
That much more depressing, yeah. You can't. It is about a mile from here.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? And again, everybody, please feel free to pose your questions on H2H chat. Susie, again, will be taking those over the course of the next 25 minutes so that we can ask those back of our guests. I'm going to go ahead and start in by actually just real quick before I actually move into this. I wanted to also real quickly thank Neustar for being a sponsor here today. They've been a great partner on Shareology, my latest book, and they have really helped to put this guest panel together here today. So I wanted to make sure that they got the proper shout out here. So Neustar, thank you so much. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. One of the things is, how do you market to the consumer? How do you market directly to the consumer? As you all know, the name of this is H2H Chat, so it won't be any surprise that we're all marketing to humans. I think we could at least all agree on that. But I'm interested in hearing how you guys build your own strategy. How do you build the strategy around your own multiple engagement points and in targeting the consumer? How do you, and when I say consumer, I mean in business to business or business to consumer. So let's start with Ingrid. Ingrid, why don't we start with you and how do you build a strategy around that?
Absolutely, thanks. So, you know, when we hear B2B or B2C, to me those are really outdated terms. It's really B to P, or business to people. At the end of B2P. It really isn't about, oh, I'm a business person. The way I think about it is I'm a business person and a consumer. I shop, I buy things, I look for things, and my behavior is no different than any other consumer or business person out there. Nobody walks into a showroom today to buy a car and for the first time they see it in the showroom. They've already done all their research on the web, they've already downloaded all the specs, they've gotten sentiment analysis from other consumers, and so that same thing happens in enterprise software. They're not walking into our showroom, our corporate offices, and saying, hey, tell me all about Hadoop or tell me all about your product. They've already done all their research. They have already found everything online, and if we're not positioned to be giving those answers online, we're kind of missing the point. So our strategy is to really think about the business person as a consumer, as a human, and how they think about, what activities do they embark upon. Thank you. I want to get the first one. But basically, what do? They go, I ask even our engineers, what do you do when you buy an appliance or a car? What's the first thing you do? And they're all like, I search for it on Google? Yes, that's correct. That's what they're doing for your software as well. So we need to be prepared for that world of digital transformation that's already happening, has been happening, and treat our business colleagues just like the consumers they are. So they are people, and I don't think necessarily about the devices. I really do think about who's the end person and what strategy do I need to get to, what's going to make them, want to find out more about us and engage with us on a daily basis. So our strategy is all built around the people that would primarily buy our product or influence our product, from developers, data scientists, CIOs, and line of business people as well. So we think about the whole big picture there.
Fantastic. I couldn't agree with you more. Chandar, why don't you go ahead and go next? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, Ingrid was spot on. She uses the term B2P, and I've been using this term for quite a while. It's not about business to business or business to consumer. I use the term B2H, business to human, in this context, and it's kind of the same thing. And the philosophy we have at Marketo and how we market to our customers is embedded into our products too, and how we help our customers do that. I'll put it in 7 words. It's really about helping people, helping companies build long-term relationships with their customers.
Yeah.
Really, in today's world, if you really look at the average consumer has lots of choice and very little attention spans, right? They can only, there's a 7-second attention span on anything that they have, and they're bombarded by 3,000 messages per day. So the challenge is, how do we stay above the noise and be relevant to those consumers on a daily basis? And the approach that we take is trying to not worrying about the transaction of getting somebody to buy something, which is kind of the old way of transactional marketing, but really build long-term relationships and being there at every step of the journey. And the term I use for that is called engagement marketing, which is building long-term relationships. And you do that by guiding the customer towards a journey. Marketers don't build customer journeys, customers do. And what you do in that context is you understand the customer at every point of time in their journey. You educate the customer while going through that process. And then you guide them towards an outcome, and you use technology at scale to go do that in a way that's relevant to them, that's meaningful to them. And that's really the approach that we take of building long-term relationships and providing content, as well as providing an experience that's individualized to each person to make them kind of feel that, okay, that is something that I can resonate with and be relevant to it. Now, all this is not new concept. We've talked from 1996. Peppers and Rogers wrote a great book saying that, the future of marketing is all about one-to-one marketing. That was 20 years ago. The difference today that we can do this, that you have technology that can do it at scale today than 20 years ago, and that's really the manifestation of that sentiment can happen today as opposed to what was talked about many years ago. And that's really what we're doing and what's embedded in our technology.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, no, you guys are spot on here. Wes, why don't you jump in on that?
Yeah, I'll take it a slightly different angle here. I think that we're in an era now that I would call the decision economy, and that means that we have more options than we've ever had, and we have more technology than we've ever had to help guide the way we make decisions as consumers, as humans, as well as businesses. And so the topic that I like to think about as it relates to these decision economy is that we have to now, as marketers, have decision engines to understand where we allocate our resources and how do we prove definitively that what we're doing is actually working. Well beyond the intermediary metrics. The big problem we've seen with the measurement of this question, how do you actually measure, how consumers act and what's working, is increasingly complex, and it's increasingly done wrong. And what we're finding is that traditional attribution methods, for instance, only look at that silo in which digital is happening, for instance. Well, the humans are working across multiple platforms. We're working across multiple sales and marketing and communication channels. So there's long-term brand effects that have to be looked at. All these things feed into the alchemy that fuels decision economy. And the consumers are there already. We're all using Yelp and OpenTable, and we're using Google Maps to figure out what's the fastest path that we can get from point A to point B. We're using DVRs to cut out what we don't want to watch, and you get really pissed off when you watch a commercial that could have been DVR'd through. So we as consumers have now technology in this decision economy to take advantage of these things. But the marketers are still trying to yell and sell and still trying to push marketing at people as opposed to understanding truly how consumers are acting these days. So I think that using the gift that we have in this era of more data than we've ever had, cheaper computing power than we've ever had, the ability to do things like Neustar does with authenticated identity, it's just an entirely new era right now for us as marketers.
And it's a fun one. I think there's no better time to be a good marketer or a better marketer.
It's a terrible time to be a bad marketer. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Right. So just continue along those lines. Let's talk about the tools. As you evaluate tools, and this could apply as we were talking about before. This could apply to each of you in a different way. But as you evaluate tools and predict their impact to the consumer, how do you evaluate a tool so that it does what you just said that you like to do strategically around humans? How do you do that? And you know what? I'm going to start with Chandar first on that question.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? To humanize the experience, we have to look at it as a complete journey, and we look at it as, how do you acquire customers faster, how do you keep them longer, and how do you convert as many of them as to advocates as possible, so you create this virtuous cycle. And you do that by humanizing the experiences we talked about. Mm-hmm. So when you look at tools, it's complex. There's 2,000 technologies out there. If you look at Scott Brinker and his technology landscape, that number goes up, exponentially, and it's been gone up for many, many years. So it's not easy. So the way we look at it is that, we kind of break it down into acquisition cycle tools. Okay, what are the tools that helps us in the acquisition cycle? What are the tools that helps us to build that long-term relationship with customers? And how do they blend in with the core operating platform that we offer for marketing automation, in our case, right? So that what we give to our customers. And the objective for us is not to say that there's only a set of there's only a set of 6, 7, 8 tools, but give as much choice as possible for customers to plug in these tools at different stages of the journey that they want to basically interact with the customer. So I'll tell you, even like advocacy, for example, that we've just looked at a tool. Includer, for example, is a tool that we've looked at for advocacy. It's really, really good to kind of not only just worry about tools for acquisition marketing, but also look at tools that builds those long-term relationships with customers through advocacy that ultimately helps you build that virtuous cycle. And that's the lens in which we're looking at, saying, how are we using these technologies at different stages to build that virtuous cycle, if that makes sense.
Great. Awesome. And Ingrid, what do you think about that?
Okay, I'm going off of mute. I am in a coffee shop, so I do apologize if the noise keeps getting louder. It's quiet when I got here. But basically, the tools it's a great question because we are constantly evaluating all of the tools that are out there. The great news for us marketeers today is that new tools are being brought into market almost every day, via the Salesforce model or Marketo, working all in conjunction with each other. And very similar to what we tell our customers at HortonWorks, one size doesn't fit all. If you have a big data problem in our space and you want to do streaming data flows, meaning real-time data from any type of device, we have various solutions for you that you can subscribe to. It's not going to be like one size fits all. It's not going to be something that it's going to be stuck in time. We're constantly evaluating the tool sets that are out there. We're constantly trying new things. In our space, since we're growing so fast, we have the luxury of unplugging and plugging new things in all the time. So we're able to adjust quickly. We're able to look at what works and what doesn't work. If it's not giving us a good return on investment, we eliminate it quickly. And the great news in today's world is the tools are not that expensive. You're not stuck in an ERP implementation, for instance, that you're stuck for 20 years or you're dead-ended. You can move quickly and evaluate quickly and talk to other marketeers about what's working for them. And you can see it from your numbers, right? You see it from your engagement numbers, your sales numbers, your whole funnel, obviously. But when it comes down to where am I getting sales and why does it matter, it's where you're going to invest. You know where you need to invest along that path. So for me, it's just constantly monitoring things, never standing still, always looking forward and looking at what's available. And again, not one size fits all.
Right. Yeah, the thing that rings true for me for what you just said is staying nimble and flexible and allowing companies to be that. Still, it's kind of shocking to me how many companies hold the data, and when you look at things like Facebook, who obviously holds all the data of everything that we do, pretty much for the most part, it makes it hard to be nimble, to switch easily, to do what you're talking about, and I'm an advocate for exactly what you just said.
Yeah, so we're doing it almost daily right now. I'm evaluating, since I'm fairly new to HortonWorks, we're evaluating daily what's working, what's not working, turn this on, turn this off, try this, try that, to try and really fine-tune where we're at the point where we can measure every marketing activity. And I'm telling the team, we can measure everything you're doing, and it's not good, it's not bad. We're going to go be data-driven, and we're going to measure what's happening, and we're going to make adjustments based on the data, not on our gut feel, which I also have, but not gut feel, but based on data and the numbers that are coming back. And we're going to make adjustments on tools, and already we've made a few adjustments on tools. This isn't working, that's an older technology. Here's a newer technology, willing to give these guys a shot. and see what they come up with. And again, this is all about a new ecosystem that's available to marketeers that frankly didn't exist 5 years ago. And that's what makes it so fun to just every morning, you just don't know what's the new tool that's out there. New companies started, they got a new idea, use it. You know, there's no harm, and there's a ton of these companies that want you to use their tools just to see how it's going to work, and you're not going to go wrong. So my advice to most marketeers is try a lot of different things, fail often, fail fast, and move on and adjust. So tools are part of that strategy.
Wes, how about yourself?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I do think that if you look at documents like the Lumascape that look at the industry, it's an absolute mess in terms of there's some great technology, and there is more fool's gold out there as it relates to tools. And I think that the number one complaint or concern I hear from all of my CMO clients is there are not enough hours in the day to field the calls and the meetings from these companies, and I don't know which ones are the good stuff versus the fool's gold. And I think that's a growing issue, and that speaks to what I was trying to mention earlier about, you've got the decision economy. Now I believe we need to have these decision engines, and these decision engines are, around, you've got an engine around data, you have an engine around implementation and planning, you have one around campaign level execution, you have one around marketing automation. What we're finding as marketers everyone's using very similar languages, but when you double click into it, you see that, all analytics are not the same type of analytics. All attribution or measurement are not the same. And I think what we're seeing this migration, we're seeing attribution and analytics 2.0 really starting to take place right now. And I think it ties in with the big data topic. What I find that is, if you think about data as like the new oil, you need analytics as a refinery to understand, actually what to do with it. And in that same case, big data with the wrong analytics just means you get the wrong answer with more granularity. So the analytics are becoming increasingly important for companies as a technology and as a tool. And this isn't something you should have, your internal team try to do. We're talking something that requires true technology, cloud computing. It's a very different game than it was even 5 years ago. And we're finding those companies that really are embracing and getting the right decision engines in place are really creating an asymmetric advantage for themselves.
Well, and this is Ingrid. I think you really need to drill down and really inspect almost on a daily basis what's happening in your engine and what's happening in the market. Every day is a new day, and yesterday was yesterday. The future is in front of you, and we see data changing almost every day or every week, so that we do have to think about making adjustments. So, and I think if you're a marketeer, you need to love numbers, and if you don't love numbers, you've got to rethink. You really need to be thinking about the analytics of your business.
Yeah, Brian, I mentioned that today. I spoke at INSEAD today, the business school here in Europe, and that was my point, was what Ingrid just mentioned, which is, I remember, I think many marketers got into marketing in college to avoid math class as part of a business requirement, and now all of a sudden this is the worst nightmare of this merging of math and science and with marketing, and we're creating an entirely new generation of marketers that are data driven. Doesn't mean you can't be creative. It doesn't mean you can't you can't believe in brand. It just means that you actually have to understand the left and the right brain. Frank Gehry is a genius designer. Frank Gehry is an amazing architect, but he also understands the engineering that keeps his product from falling down on people.
So, so the term,
I'm totally smiling because I have a degree in math. Which I never knew was going to be useful in marketing, but it is absolutely exactly, my convergence of creativity and math have now finally come together after all these years.
Yeah,
so
the term
it's a great career.
This is Chandar Ingrid. That point was spot on. The term we use is you have to have the combination of Picasso and Einstein, and marketing was a lot Picasso, and now you need the Einstein brain into it to get the right mix. And especially now with there's 30, 40 technologies that are in conjunction with the marketing automation platform with the customers. So going back to what's the one that's giving the best measurement, the best return, the best attribution, to use your term best, and that's the one that ultimately is going to stay in the dominant world of that. So, spot on.
But it's critical to get it right, and I think that what we're finding is, and I'm seeing this around the world, is we're seeing companies deploying the wrong types of attribution and the wrong types of analytics, either using things that are overly simplistic or last click, machine learning. They're forgetting the humans, and they're forgetting how humans actually shop and act and decide, and it's a totally different game. And guess what? We have memories. We actually remember brands. We actually buy for other reasons other than the banner ad that just ran under our nose. So there are lots of other dynamics at work to actually get to true attribution and true predictability with marketing, and we're entering that era right now.
I didn't want to interrupt you because you said human like 2 or 3 times, so I'll just give it to you once here.
No.
So guys, I'm interested in talking a little bit more about data. We were talking about analytics, and I think that we should stay on that path because it's exactly what it's the exact conversation that's happening right now with marketers. I was just at a couple conferences this week, and it seemed to be the topic at everybody's fingertips in terms of the data. How do you trust the data? How do you get the right data? What data should we look at? All that kind of stuff. And so I'm interested in as we look at it, how do as CMOs look at data, you have to be a savvy data analyst, and actually that's part of the question. Do you think you have to be a data savvy analyst? And what data is most critical for your role and your overall business strategy? Wes, why don't we start with you on this one?
Okay. Yeah, I think you have to be savvy, and I think you have to be data friendly. I don't think you have to be an analyst. That's really what the technology is doing. For instance, with MarketShare, we built out this platform called the MarketShare Decision Cloud, and the idea is to make a very simple platform that clients can log on to and plan and decide and then do, and have that connect into and relate to systems that then are in the execution realm, and that's where partnerships with companies like Google and Neustar and others come together, because you need that data to fuel it. I don't think that means that the marketer has to be the one actually doing the work. Most CMOs don't do that on our end. What they're doing is they have analysts, they have finance people, they have analytics directors, people like that are actually building out that role internally. But I think it also relates. They have to have someone internally who can actually shepherd. Almost like this role of the chief marketing technology officer, sort of buzzy idea that's been around. There's some semblance of that, just at least someone who gets it, maybe someone under the age of 30 who can actually help navigate around what do I actually need, what should we be investing in, and so I'm finding that marketers are, from a best practices standpoint, they don't necessarily have to get their hands dirty doing the analytics, because the tools do that for them now, but they have to be mindful of the importance of analytics and actually trust it. I look at it as like avionics in a cockpit. The pilot still flies the plane, but the pilot has to, in their heart, trust the avionics are telling them the right thing when they're in the middle of a thunderstorm and they can't see anything out of the glass. They have to trust that it's telling if the plane's upside down, then you can fix it. Another plane's approaching, climb and descend. That's really what avionics are doing, and I think that we're entering this realm of marketing where this agility is going to be fueled by avionics-like technology to help them make better decisions in this increasingly complex world.
Yeah, but this is Ingrid. So I really kind of think that you also have to listen to the people you're trying to serve. In my case, I'm trying to serve my salespeople.
Right.
Right. And I got this big number, right? I got this great big lead number, and they're not seeing it, right? They're like, those numbers don't tell the truth, right? So we actually listened to the people and went and did the complete analysis all the way down to the bottom of the funnel to sales to see what was converting, and we can tell exactly by sales rep where the lead came from and how it if it ever converted into a sale, down to very fine science. But it was really listening to my end customer. In some cases might be a salesperson that's selling to my customer that's then selling, knowing every step along the way, the whole life cycle. I could then make the analysis of, they're right. They weren't getting as many as they thought, and we need to fix that, and here's how we can do it. So we now can have a fruitful conversation instead of sales and marketing kind of going, you're wrong, you're not telling the truth, or you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't know how to use Salesforce or Marketo or what have you. I want to have real productive conversations about what we're trying to achieve together. So you got to look at it and really listen to everything, all the noise out there that you hear from your salespeople, your customers, your consumers, your end consumers, and figuring out if any of that makes any sense, and then put it into the, kind of, this is where your creativity now comes in, is what makes sense and what should we be doing about this, as opposed to saying, no, the numbers don't lie, they're all right. Numbers kind of do lie sometimes, so you got to really look at those numbers and not be a data scientist or an analytics expert or even a math person like myself, but you got to be open enough to think these numbers could be misleading. They could not be telling us what we're really looking for, what's really being seen in reality. So I kind of wanted to put that out there too, which is kind of a new experience for my team.
That's a great point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, the bridge between marketing and finance is increasingly important, and I feel like I wrote about this in Harvard Business Review earlier in the year, this article about the new power couple is the CMO and the CFO. Those are the two people with a mandate for growth, and there needs to be transparency between marketing activities and P&L impact in a very clear and definitive way, and in a way that's not a black box either, because that way Ingrid can actually go into the head of sales with the proof of impact and sit with the CFO and have the CFO nodding affirmative.
Oh, and the CEO.
Yeah.
And our company goes all the way to the top.
I'm on a public company board. I get to see it from that side of the equation too. I mean, there is very little margin of error these days for CMO.
Oh yeah, and even our board is focused on this. So it's huge, right? For a fast growth company like ourselves, it's in the new modern era, selling big data solutions and subscriptions. Yes. We need to be using this to our end means as well. So
no, totally on that point, Ingrid. You're spot on that piece. When you talk to majority of our customers, that's the point that they talk about, is that can I have data to kind of showcase my impact, marketing's impact to the CEO and to the CFO? And I was talking to Panasonic the other day, and the fact that they can go from 7% attribution to marketing to 30% attribution to marketing on impact on revenue, and they can showcase that, go to the CFO, Wes, and make that point, is a huge impact, for them to say, here is what marketing is bringing to the table, as opposed to just leads, but impact on revenue per se, as opposed to just leads. So definitely that point in terms of looking at data from a backward perspective. But the real, as we look forward for data, we live in a golden age of data because the blizzard is just coming with 19 billion devices soon coming next to us. The blizzard for data is just coming with IoT and stuff like that. So really the challenge is going to be find the beacons in the blizzard and use technology that can not only kind of look at the insights from a backward looking, but also forward looking in terms of predictive, in terms of what do I need to do to ultimately drive that, humanize that experience and drive towards the outcome that I want, and use technology to go do that. And that's really the ones that marketers who can do that well are going to be extremely successful in doing that.
Well, we also need new tools based on new technologies that are just coming out to capture the billions of internet. We call it the Internet of Anything. It's coming from social, it's coming from geolocation devices, coming from any device, sensors, machines, anything that has a digital heartbeat is now emitting data. And there's a whole new set of tools that we're still looking for. We're going to be creating some probably ourselves to look at this, but there are new technologies coming along, like I'll give you one, Apache NiFi, which is an open source project that's doing real-time streaming of data. How do we capture that, then how do we ingest that, collect it, and then what do we do to curate it, and what do we do with it? So we have an even bigger challenge coming up in the next few years. That you're absolutely right. Humans are carrying more devices. Humans are going to be emitting their own. Like if you're carrying, if you've got an Apple Watch, for instance, you're emitting data right now. Your heartbeat and everything. So we need to be focused on that and looking at what data is coming along and how do we solve for that. Right. It's almost like today's world is the old world tomorrow.
So I'm going to be flipping back over to questions. You guys are getting an amazing amount of questions coming in here, so we're going to have plenty for the second half of this. But before we do that, I want to make sure that we answer the rest of that question, because we're on a really good path there. The question is, what do you think the key metric is? At least when you're starting out, I get that it's an agile world and that we're working toward what those metrics could be, and we need to be open to them and challenge the data and so on and so forth. But you know, there is one side of the playing field, that's the vanity metrics, and there's the other side of the playing field, and those are the sales or the marketing to sales data and metrics. You need both, unfortunately, in my opinion. Where do you stand, and what is the one key metric you love? What's your go-to metric as you onboard? I mean, obviously it's going to change.
Revenue.
Yeah.
All right.
It's revenue. It really is.
Revenue.
It totally is about revenue. Yeah.
This is my world, and 100%. You know, 100% focus on P&L impact and revenue, and
Revenue.
I think that what I call the intermediary metrics, or the soft metrics that we used to measure marketing on, brand effects, awareness, purchase intent, where you're at in the funnel. That's nice and interesting if it actually correlates or causally connects straight to P&L. If it doesn't, then it's a waste of effort and it's a waste of time to measure. And so I think that it's as you move up the organization, the singularity of focus, it gets much more crisp, you know, around the metric that you should be concerned about. The more senior you are in the organization, the more the focus is on revenue, is what I've seen. And I think that we may have people executing tactical campaigns that they're focused on maybe some soft metric, but if that soft metric does not accrue to some sort of a P&L event, then it shouldn't be done.
Yeah, that's spot on, Wes. On that piece, it's just not the metric itself, but creating incentive programs to people to kind of drive that metric. So, for example, in our marketing organization, our lead gen, we don't incent people for just leads or, you know, marketing qualified leads or you know, top of the funnel activities. Yes, that is something, an engine room metric that we care about. But in terms of an incentive metric that ultimately we want to align towards revenue, like, you know, how many opportunities that ultimately created how much revenue, and that's really what matters at the end of the day. You know, to drive marketing and sales team alignment that Ingrid talked about, as well as our impact on what the business really wants. So that's really what we want to do, and that's really what we're doing in action today.
And we see that as well. So we look at all of it, right? So we're looking at top of the funnel, MQLs, everything all the way down to revenue. We do see a correlation between top of the funnel and various activities in the path all the way down to revenue. So when we know that those certain things are working really incredibly well, like maybe social media, like through an announcement or something, and it's converted to something that matters to us, we're going to do more of those, right? We're going to invest more in that. So for me, it's always trial and error, what works, what doesn't work. But I do want to see all of the metrics all the way down, but at the end of the day, it's all about revenue.
It's not about likes and follows.
No, those are nice. I mean, they do help because that's an influencer metric.
Yes.
Influencer metrics are soft metrics, and I do track on those because I think they're critically important. You know, if I have nobody following our handle on Twitter, where we're using social, the good news is we have over 92,000 followers on Twitter. Got to use that as a channel. That's one of our channels, and it is driving people to our site and then to a download and then to an engagement. So, but at the end of the day, the number one metric is revenue. If I'm not helping the sales team achieve their numbers, you can just shut the whole thing down, right? It's just that simple.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. I am going to jump into the questions part here. We're running a little bit behind, but it's okay because this is such an excellent conversation. So here we go. Eileen Nielsen, at Eileen Nielsen, she said, are there too many options in this new decisions economy, in quotes? Do we have too many choices that hinder our decisions, and how can we overcome indecision? Wes, you introduced the concept of the decision economy here. Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I started off my career in direct marketing, and with direct marketing, more than one option is bad, and so I completely agree that we have a cacophony of options and noise today for consumers, and that makes it very, very difficult. I think that is why I'm a big proponent of engines and tools that actually help cut through that. But I think it's really important to have the right kind and to have the right tools and the right. Math matters, and having the right analytics and the right math is increasingly a game changer in terms of helping cut through some of that. I think consumers are already doing it. I mean, consumers are probably cutting down those 3,000 commercials a day that they're exposed to, down to a handful thanks to technology to make it more manageable. The scale of noise and options has been geometric, while our brain and our capacity to decide has been almost, is evolutionary, is almost flat compared to that. So I think that is definitely a marketer challenge, and I think that's where synchronicity of message and the clarity of message, a clear North Star around the brand that you're trying to communicate is critically important. That's carried through all these various touch points. I think the other last piece is that the marketers, that are doing things, I think, in the most innovative way right now are not measuring or incenting their teams by the silo in which they execute, but they're looking in this omni-media, transmedia way. So you don't have someone doing just search and direct mail and TV and in-store promotion and measuring just within the silos, because that's really what creates a lot of bad behavior and more complexity. But we're seeing people really incented on to what Ingrid mentioned is the indirect effect. A TV spot stimulates a search activity, which then stimulates people talking about it on social media, which then leads to someone walking into a store. That's a daisy chain of events that needs to be measured. Those indirect effects and the direct effects need to be quantified, so then you can know how to optimize that. So I think ultimately we can bring more simplicity. We are bringing more simplicity thanks to the technology. But many companies that have not adopted some of these tools are in a world of hurt because they're trying to still do this by gut and intuition or do it manually, and it's impossible.
Or traditional marketing, which doesn't really work anymore.
Yeah, or trying to use GRPs as your decision metric is an absolute mistake, because GRPs are the metric for buying television. It's a trading mechanism, and as opposed to a proof of impact mechanism like it used to be in the 70s and the 80s. It was pretty simple. Now it's a completely different story.
Yeah.
Great. Unless any of the other two had anything to add, I'll move to the next question here. The next one is by Nancy Rubin, a good friend of HCA Chat, and she said, talk a little bit more about authenticated identities. I see a couple people shaking their heads here, so I'm gonna. Chandar, do you want to take that one?
Well, I'll try to answer the question. I try to understand the sentiment in which she's asking the question, and then keep.
Let me re-ask it for you and pretend like I'm her, because I think where she's saying is when is it a good time to authenticate an identity versus the conversion. You're giving away content versus authenticated identity. You're asking them to convert, and now all of a sudden you're marketing to them, which makes perfect sense. That's what Marketo kind of does, right? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think we have a philosophy in terms of, if you look at the funnel and in a B2B context, and we can talk about in a consumer context too, is where do we start capturing names of people in terms of market to them further? And if you look at the stats, 66 to 90% of any individual's journey is self-directed today. And Ingrid talked about buying a car, and you go up at the last step of buying the car, and it's the same thing whether you're buying a turbo engine or a car or anything else that you're or marketing automation software for that, right? So what we look at is at the top of the funnel, a lot of it is educational. We don't try to capture the name, and we want to educate you in your journey. We're trying to build brand awareness and build engagement without trying to capture your name, right? And then as we progress along the funnel, as the person expresses more interest and stuff like that, we start capturing the name, and then we have technologies today that even market to you for anonymous people as opposed to known people, and we have a lot of customers using that helps you create a personalized experience even for anonymous people as opposed to a known individual. And then as that person engages more and more is when we started actually capturing the name for gated content versus ungated content. And then typically that stuff that's bottom of the funnel and middle of the funnel, we capture names and kind of have gated content. But on top of the funnel, our philosophy has been like, it's typically ungated. We don't capture names. We try to educate you. Classic example of a customer project, Kaiser Permanente, they did it really well, is that rather than trying to sell you for directly marketing to consumers to humanize the experiences, Bryan, you've been talking about, for people who have never purchased health insurance before, what they're trying to do is educate them on how to buy health insurance in an ungated way, rather than trying to go market to them on why they should buy Kaiser Permanente technology. So interesting ways of doing that. But again, that's the philosophy behind what we're trying to do.
And Wes, you brought that up. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think, and Nancy, thanks for asking that. I think that the intent was, I see our world moving beyond the cookie world pretty quickly. I think there's this post-cookie era approaching that means that attribution and targeting is changing as a result as well. And one thing that we're doing and partnering with Neustar on right now is they have some of the craziest data I've ever come across in terms of they call it authoritative data. I think of it as authenticated, but it's really looking at the sorry to say this, the human, and actually looking at the various devices and touch points that customer, sorry. It's like a negative reinforcement to say that, by the way. So,
should I do a new sound?
Yeah, no. I'll start to say Homo sapien if you don't mind. But part of what I'm interested in is how do we start to get beyond this cookie to understand who is actually behind that activity, and how do we make sure that we, obviously still anonymized, but that we have enough context of all these various decision points to understand what is making that person act. Who are they across multiple devices? I think Google and Facebook also have that capability through people logging into Gmail or people logging into Facebook on multiple devices, but they only can see what they can see. I think the next stage of this is the ability to use authenticated data in a way that we can actually look across that landscape, across mobile, laptop, tablet, IoT, to understand who is who, and actually make sure we're targeting the right message to the right person at the right time. So I think it ultimately leads to more relevancy, and ultimately leads to more efficiency, and hopefully, I think ultimately better for the consumer too, because they're getting things that are more relevant to them as opposed to that yelling and selling I was mentioning earlier. So I hope that helps a little bit.
I think it does, and I think Neustar actually is in a unique position to be able to solve this pretty dramatically and succinctly with their whole business and what they're looking at in terms of IoT and multiple devices. So Neustar is on, I think, the cutting edge, and we're working with them on that as well. So it's pretty fun times. I think we're going to see in the next couple of maybe quarters or a year the new tools that will tap into the new technologies. I'm hoping for that as well.
Yeah.
Just one piece of that is the Neustar. I mean, we are working with them too. It's not. There's a great line which says, cookies don't buy products, people do. And it's really about understanding, humanize the experiences, as Bryan, you've been talking about. But really, there's technologies out there like Neustar trying to bring this whole worlds of advertising and marketing together and making those things in conjunction. So very interesting technologies you're going to see over the next 2 years coming up on that front.
So
people eat cookies.
I was just going to say that, but people buy cookies.
People eat cookies.
I could use them right now.
Everybody has a sweet tooth right now.
Right.
So here's an interesting question from Susie, and it's interesting because I was speaking. Actually, I had the honor of speaking at Harvard yesterday, and one of the biggest questions that I got, and some of the other speakers got, was this question. And this is from Susie McCarthy, by the way, who's running our tweet chat. The bottom line is ROI. How do you measure the ROI of social, and particularly relationships? Isn't that a good one? So, Ingrid, would you like to take that one first?
Yeah, I think I said it earlier that social and some of the softer metrics are influencer. To me, they're influencer metrics, and what I look at is a full integrated digital experience. So I look at everything that we do as adding up to the bottom line, back to revenue. And if I can measure everything from, okay, this person said this on a blog or social, they engaged with us at, either online or at a webinar or what have you, I think we're at that point pretty quickly here where we can then say, did this add up to revenue? So it's not like a tweet's going to add up to revenue. I mean, a single tweet. But you can see sentiment analysis coming out of certain individuals that they're influencing or certain companies, and it goes back to account-based marketing perhaps. You can start to see and formulate and predict what's going to happen down the road, and that's where we're going. That's the puck that we're skating towards right now, is what's the prediction of the likelihood of this person and their first touch or multi-touch is going to result in revenue at their company. And I'm talking about their company, not about them, because even though we're marketing to those individuals, as people, it's a company that actually makes the final decision about what they're going to buy and from whom, at least in our business. So we have to be mindful of all of that. And I'm looking at, okay, if there's company X and 50 people from company X are tweeting about us, and we see them show up at a conference, and they're doing blogs, and we can see that they downloaded a white paper, they're attending webinars, they're likely to be a customer at the end of the day, and they're likely to buy. And so there's a lot of things that we can do in terms of triangulating social versus traditional versus all the online channels that we have to figure out what's going to happen next. And I think that's the world that they're going to. But measuring one thing in social, no, you can't measure that in a standalone basis. I don't think so, unless you guys tell me that there's a way to do it. I'd love to know, but I do not believe that is the case today.
I can take a quick stab at that, since that's definitely my world. Yeah, I agree. I think that I think ROI is even the wrong way to look at it. ROI is a snapshot in time measurement. So I'm going to get mathy here for a moment, but ROI is a snapshot in time. A snapshot in time. This is what just happened. It's like taking a blood test if you're diabetic, and it tells you what is going on at that minute. It doesn't tell you what you should do next. It doesn't tell you how to change it. And that's really where return on marginal investment is more important than return on investment. So marginal investment means, where should my next dollar go? What is my next move? And that's geometrically more complex mathematically, but it's also a lot more useful than looking backwards to say what happened. It's like you can't drive through the rearview mirror. So so what should my next move be? So return on marginal investment is ultimately the metric that marketers need to look at. Looking at the direct and the indirect effects of social, along with offline, along with all these other variables, all build up. Some brands are impacted more than others, and some brands' marketing evaporates much faster than others, as does social influence. It's some brands are just not very well built for that level of engagement, and therefore it doesn't really matter. Some brands actually are, therefore it does matter more.
It depends.
Ticketmaster.
Yeah, it really depends.
Yeah, it really depends.
Yeah.
So so I think that's something that we're constantly trying to make sure that people, yes, it's important, but at the same time, there certain things are much more important than other things, depending on the business, depending on the market, depending on the what's called market response. How does the market respond to different?
Right. That was like what I was saying earlier, one size doesn't fit all. So if you're only doing social, you're probably not doing the best that you can do. If you're only doing events, that's also
search,
not
or direct mail.
Or direct mail. You need to really have a blended mix, and you need to know what dials to turn and what's going to work and what's not going to work for your audience, for the people you're trying to reach at the very end of the
recipe.
What is the recipe? And I think every company has a different one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the key is there, to the point Wes made, is that you can look at it as a separate swim lane. You have to look at it as a consistent interaction across these different channels. And so social just happens to be one of them. And, a lot of our customers, we think about this term, it's a technology term, it's, a marketing term, multi-touch attribution. But it's really understanding the customer journey across these different touch points and figuring out what sourced it, what sourced it, what influenced it, and what was the last thing that made it convert into an opportunity in the B2B world. And ability to dissect and understand the different channels of engagement of each of those was really, really what customers can use technology to go do today.
Fantastic. So let's see. We've just got just a couple minutes left, and so I'm gonna ask one more question here from Jace Henry. When do you see true omni-channel approach of connecting data no longer being an option for B2C brands?
2013.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Yeah. All right, let's go to another one. Since we now have 2 more minutes, we have another one from J.S. Gilbert, a good friend of H2H as well. Is the panel excited about streaming video as it might apply to supporting brands or service to its fan base or clients? And when he says streaming video, I think he's talking about Meerkat, Periscope, Blab. So how are you guys finding and using video services? Is that something you're using or considering?
Yeah, I mean, we use video services today. One very interesting trend that's going to come up in the next 6 months, and you're going to have companies going to announce this and talk about this, is using personalization in video. Now we've personalized the web experience, we've personalized the email experience, and we've personalized the different interaction points, the mobile experience, for example. But in a live video, can you personalize the experience? For example, if Ingrid is sending me an email or sending me a video, can she personalize that experience for Chandar versus Wes versus Bryan? There's technologies out there that's going to let you do that, and that's what makes it exciting, is using video as another channel of interaction that's going to personalize the experience as well as everybody else, as well as the other ones that I talked about. So that's something interesting that's coming up.
Let's see, Wes, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that video. I mean, some of the analytics that we've done quantifying the impact of like $1 spent on YouTube is pretty remarkable. TrueView is one of the most effective techniques that we've come across so far, so I'm excited as a marketer in terms of how do I spend money on that kind of a video platform. We're not seeing that level of success in other forms of video right now when we're measuring it. I think you look at Periscope and some of these other platforms, they're still super small. I mean, too small to have any meaningful impact for most companies. And you remember, I'm focused primarily on multinationals, so they need scale. So I think that matters. But I think that also, does it actually deepen that relationship with artists, for instance? Yeah, probably does. But I think the numbers are still small. I do think that the impact. I do see that measurement of relationships is an important element here. I mean, we see that on the B2B side of things. You're not measuring marketing activities as much as you're measuring the Salesforce relationships and how do those activities play against that. So you actually can assign a P&L impact to relationships. You should. There's obviously value to that as well, but I think video does play a role in that. But again, it depends on the type of company, it depends on the type of audience that you're talking to.
Yeah, and I use live streaming, and I've used live streaming in the past very effectively, especially when it comes to announcements and so forth.
We're doing it right now.
We're doing it right now. This is video right now.
That's right.
I think it can be quite effective. You just need to build an entire campaign around it. Again, I don't think one thing correlates to final end of sale or sale at the end. I did notice somebody said that one of their tweets did result in revenue. Good for you. I'd love to hear more about it.
You're the one.
I mean, it's awesome. That would be the cheapest way to go.
Right.
But I think that's an outlier, but sure, it happens, right? Somebody watches a video and they buy your product. Wow, that's great. I love it.
Well, guys, I can sit here and lady and guys, I can sit here and talk to you all day. And I just want to let you guys know that we have trended on Twitter in the United States. We're number 9. So congratulations to that. This conversation is
Does that matter to us from a P&L standpoint? Come on.
but it's all about
What's the ROMI on that, Wes? So
That's yeah. We'll work. Well, we return on marginal investment. We'll know tomorrow. Sounds.
yeah.
So here's a sound for trending on Twitter. There we go. And so I wanted to thank you guys for being thank you guys for being here today. Really appreciate it. This conversation has been fantastic, and like I said, I really could go another hour. I mean, the content was
I could go 8 hours.
there was more questions. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to all of them. If you guys just have a moment or two to go on Twitter and you want to answer a few people, that would be awesome. I know they'd appreciate it.
You bet. And direct message is good too for more personal questions. So feel free to do that too.
Yeah,
Wes Nichols or any of us.
Okay.
Handles.
Great. All right. Everybody, please feel free to either tweet or direct message. And other than that, I really want to thank you guys. I want to thank Neustar once again for hosting us here. This has been fantastic. So Neustar, big thank you to you. And then next week, we are going to be having Vivica von Rosen, who is a LinkedIn rock star. She has spoken all over the world, written a book, and talks about how to use LinkedIn the right way. And so I'd love to have you all there next week at noon Pacific Standard Time. Otherwise, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you everyone out there for participating on another H2H chat, and we will see you again next week. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.